What's going on, everybody? Chrome on Rust here. Happy to be bringing you another Diablo 3 video. Now, I do apologize because this video is a little bit late. If you watch my content, you know I try to come out with a video in between each season at least, and then, talk about things that happened in Season 8, talk about things that are going to be happening in Season 9. I recorded the video, I went to upload it, and I got a bunch of green screen and a bunch of little fuzzy things going on. I don't really know exactly how to explain it, but YouTube did not like the formatting of the video that came from Premiere. So I think I have it figured out now. If you're able to watch this video, then things are going good. So I do apologize for that. What we're going to be talking about, though, of course, is things that went on in Season 8, things that are going to be going on in Season 9, and just, in general, things that are going to be happening in the future of Diablo. So for me, Season 8 was entirely just about getting that 10 stash tab. I did that. I finished my journey, and Season 8 for me was pretty much over. Season 9, it's looking to be exactly the same for me. I hate to say it, but Diablo, I played a ton. I played Diablo so much that you could probably take a few of your friends' times, add them all together, and I'd still be over the amount of time that your friends have played. Now, if they're real hardcore, obviously not. But for the casual user, I have played many, many lifetimes worth of Diablo. We'll just say that. So, with that said, the Necromancer pack is probably going to be the thing that brings me back to the game if they do things right. Because I have to tell you, the Necromancer pack, when they talked about it at BlizzCon, I just wasn't very excited. It's great getting a new class. The Necro is a very iconic Diablo 2 class. Some people are probably freaking ecstatic that we're getting this. But you have to realize that it's still Diablo 3. And you're clicking the buttons in the same format. You're clicking 1 through 4. You're clicking your left and right mouse pointer. And there's just different animations on the screen. You have a different rotation. And that's pretty much all a different class is. It's not really providing us new things to farm. I mean, new gear to farm, sure. But outside of the class, the Necro really does nothing for the Demon Hunter. It's not going to improve my gameplay when I play the DH. That's just pretty much all it is. And that's kind of how I feel about the Necro pack. I hope they're going to be bringing so much more with it. It is going to be something that you have to pay for, but I'm not really worried about that at all. How many times have I read that give us more stash tabs and we'll pay for them? Well, they gave us a bunch of stash tabs. We didn't have to pay for them, but with the Necro pack, they're going to be giving us additional stash tabs, and we're going to have to pay for it. So I'm not really worried about that. But let's go ahead and jump into a couple things that I did pull up here. Joe Sheely had a Q&A over on Facebook, and he answered some pretty decent questions. Maybe not answered them in the exact way that the player base would have liked to have had him do so, but at least they're addressing some of the harder hitting questions, we'll at least say. So I just want to read one of them off here, and it says, are you happy with the Paragon system right here, or do you think it needs to be reworked? Paragon is an alternative progression track allowing players to keep gaining power for ultra competitive Paragon is an alternate progression track allowing many players to keep gaining power. For ultra competitive players who want an even playing field, challenge rifts will allow you to have just that. So what are challenge rifts? For those who have not heard, didn't watch BlizzCon or whatever, challenge rifts are going to allow me to run through a rift, complete it, and let's say I do it in 10 minutes. You're then going to be able to do that same exact rift with the same exact gear, use my same exact gems, Paragon points, everything to complete that rift in a faster, more efficient time. Are there going to be rewards for this? I don't know. They really haven't told us what's going on with the challenge rifts, but I do feel that more things like the challenge rifts is really, really what Diablo needs to keep the players who've been playing since the very beginning into Diablo 3. Because I have to tell you, Diablo, in my opinion, it's a really good game. It's just taken way too much development time, and it's just kind of lost its player base due to that fact. If Diablo 3 released today, released back when it released, the way that it is now with ROS and all the content and all the, maybe they even took out a few things because ROS has added a lot. But what I'm trying to say is, if Diablo 3 was a lot more fine-tuned and a lot more hammered out when it released the way it is now, I think it would be a huge, huge successful game, not just in sales, but in terms of the player base as well. Because in terms of sales, Diablo 3 did amazing. So I'd recommend checking out this Q&A. If you don't want to read through this, I will leave a link in the description below if you do. But if you don't, there's also a YouTube video that I will leave a link in the description below too. Now, I didn't just bring it over here. Here it is, the Facebook Q&A live. If you'd like to watch it for yourself, it's only 24 minutes long, not even a half-hour show. But there are a bunch of lightning talks. I believe there's about 8 of them here. If you go through and you have not watched, or you didn't watch BlizzCon, and I guess these actually weren't, if you weren't at BlizzCon, I should say, because I don't think these actually aired for the BlizzCon virtual ticket. So if you're looking for more Diablo 3 content, I should say, I would definitely check out these lightning talks. If you're just looking for some more information and insider information of what's going on in the Diablo world or things that happened in the past, I would definitely recommend checking out these lightning talks. And once again, that Facebook Q&A live is right down there as well. So this video is a little late, as I have said. Blizzard is celebrating 20-year anniversary for Diablo. Inside of their games, they did have things going on inside all of them, as far as I know. Diablo 3 still has theirs running. Overwatch, I play that a lot, but I don't know if their a little event thing is still running. But for Overwatch, all you had to do was log into the game. They gave you some sprays. They gave you an icon, and that was pretty much it. But they didn't give us a Necromancer spray. I was in TeamSpeak. I was talking with my buddies. I think maybe Yarlith said this. He's like, you know, a really good way to hype up the Necro and make people aware of that it's even coming out is inside of all their other games. When they did a little something, they should have had a little something for the Necro as well. As for Overwatch, they should have just given a Necromancer spray. And I totally agreed with that. I thought that was actually a really good way to hype up the Necromancer. But at last, they didn't do that, and that is kind of nerds to that. But the event that they have going on inside of Diablo 3 is, in my opinion, it's all right, but it was a huge, absolutely huge waste of development time. Now, if you watched BlizzCon 2016, this year, or last year, whatever now, they said that they are putting Diablo 1 in Diablo 3. And I have to tell you, I was at work. I bought the virtual ticket. I was listening on my phone. I had my headphones in. I wasn't able to watch or anything, but, you know, just while I was at work, I was listening. And I flipped out. You know, I was standing there working next to somebody, and I was like, yo, they're putting Diablo 3 or Diablo 1 in Diablo 3. You know, but the excitement and that hype that I had during that moment has fallen and plummeted to the ground. I'm not saying that the event is bad, but I felt like it was a huge waste of development time, and they really didn't. They brought back maybe a slight feeling of Diablo 1, but it really just looks like a reskin for Diablo 3 with worse graphics. So I don't want to harp on that too much because, you know, it's people's jobs. That's what they did. They were told to do this. They put a lot of effort into it. They made it great, but it's just not what Diablo 3 needs to keep a player base around. Now, last thing that I have here is, of course, they released patch 2.4.3, and in patch 2.4.3, there were a lot of good changes. Now, the biggest one, in my opinion, is the hardware support. Support has been added. Oh, wait, no. Well, it's under hard. Added a 64-bit client as a default for 64-bit Microsoft Windows operating system. With this, players should see improvements to system performance and faster load times. That is definitely true. 64-bit has changed Diablo. It looks better. It's more fluid. It is faster. If you're in those situations where you're trying to find a particular bounty, you're trying to whatever, open, close games for some particular reason, the load times are about double. I haven't timed them, but it is much faster if you want to open and close games. Great change. This change uses DirectX 11 natively, which brings support for normal maps, per pixel lighting, and improved anti-aliasing options. The 32-bit client is still available as an option, though, through the BNet launcher. Now, when 64-bit launched, there was 3 of us in the group who were using 64-bit. One guy was on a Mac. 2 of the people using 64-bit were not able to even play when 64-bit launched. One guy had a few issues, but luckily since then they have patched 64-bit and it is working very solid. But if you do want to run the 32-bit client, I'll go ahead and pull this up here. You go to your Diablo games, and then you go over here to options, and then you would go to game settings, and then right here you can launch 32-bit client instead of 64-bit if you are having troubles with the 64-bit. If you're not, I would definitely run it. It is a lot smoother, it looks cleaner, and it is just all around been great. Now, there is one last thing that I want to talk about. And the problem that I ran into with OBS Studios is when I pulled up Diablo 3. I wanted to show you this little screen right here. If you're in the options, you can go down to the very left there corner and check whatever that click and check that icon that says show larger cursor or whatever the case it is. I don't actually have it pulled up here because I can't, because this is the situation and what I ran to last time. But if you click that box there, it's actually going to make your cursor much larger. This is a great quality of life change for Diablo. People have been using YOLO mouse basically to do just what this program is doing, so it makes it so you don't lose your actual cursor. It's a great change in my opinion. Now, I do have a few things just that I wrote down here that I would like to talk about, things that I would like, changes I would like to see, because I feel they're wasting a lot of development time, in my opinion, on things that really just don't matter. And in the end, we need more endgame farming content if you're really trying to, once again, keep the player base around that has been around since the very beginning. Because this game, for me, has been dying off very, very slowly, unfortunately. So, easier to find groups. When I play Overwatch, I hit a button, I hit quick play, I queue into a group, and I'm off to the races. Diablo 3 needs something more like that. Now, I realize that they have their public games, but their public game system is a little bit lackluster. People really don't use it. They need to bring it more up to the forefront. Let it be something that's there that people can just like click a button and you're going. I think that would really help out with helping keep people around. Maybe not for the most hardcore players, because they're going to group with their same buddies and they're going to want to play the most efficient way. But just for those players who are like, I'm going to log into Diablo, I'd like a group to play with, I want to do this, make it a little bit easier for them to do so, make it a more enjoyable experience. So more things to farm. This is something that I've already talked about, but more things to farm is necessary for the longevity of Diablo 3's life. Now, they are introducing those challenge rifts, as I said, and I do feel that those have a great potential to be something for competitive players, to just additional content for them to farm or them to run. They just need more. They just need more. Seasonal rewards for leaderboards. Now, this is maybe something that's a little bit biased, because when I was thinking about it, I was like, what would be a real good way to revitalize Diablo 3 hardcore? Because in my opinion, hardcore gives you a different play experience. It's one that can be very frustrating. It's one that can be very annoying, but at the same time, it is by far way more rewarding, in my opinion, to play hardcore. And that's why I do so. But if they had more seasonal rewards for leaderboards, it's something that would make people push to actually progress towards the end. And in hardcore, getting on the leaderboards is extremely easy. If they were to add some kind of reward, it may actually kind of bring people back, like, oh, I want to make sure I get this season, so I'm actually going to kind of make sure I farm up at least around 800 Paragon. Not that that's really that much or whatever, but just to make sure that I solidify my spot on these leaderboards, because I need this. Waste less time. Now, this is kind of for the Diablo developers, and I feel like they put time into this game that just really isn't necessary. Like the event for Diablo 1 and Diablo 3, I feel like they could have done so much more. Just anything. If it was just bug fixes, I would have loved to have seen more bug fixes, just making the game more fluid and more, just a more solid experience than to add Diablo 1 in Diablo 3. So I already talked about that. Be faster to make easier changes. Now, what am I talking about exactly? Because there are a few things that they've just pretty much flat out ignored. One of them is adding a larger cursor to the game. Do we have it now? But this game has been out how many years? From week one, people were like, I'm losing my mouse. I have no idea what's going on in the screen. Could you please make the mouse bigger, more visible? They changed it in ROS, but I have to tell you, that change didn't help. It needed to be bigger. And you know what they did? Years later, they made the cursor bigger. Removing Magic Find Gem in your helmet. They killed Magic Find off in ROS. They just, last patch, took Magic Find off of the helmet. Magic Find was completely useless. People would be like, hey, should I use that Magic Find helmet to get more legendaries? And the flat out bottom line answer 99% of the time is absolutely not. It is horrible for you. Take it off. Don't ever use it again, please. Removing trials. We had trials for seasons and seasons and seasons, and I know they wanted to give them a try, right? But season 1 was 6 months long. People were like absolutely going nuts saying, please remove trials. We had season 2, season 3, and we still had trials. They finally removed trials, though. Quicker to make these simple changes. They just had to remove trials. They just had to remove the Magic Find gem. Add stash tabs. Day 1. Since ROS has come out, we needed additional stash tabs. Maybe not in vanilla so much, but day 1 of ROS, we needed more stash tabs. If you wanted to play multiple classes, it was very frustrating to do so if you wanted to be able to try out multiple builds for that class. Now, years later, we have more stash tabs. Allowing players to go from one zone to the other, something that Diablo 2 had. You could go from anywhere in the world in Diablo 2 as long as you'd found that waypoint to this other waypoint. Once again, Diablo 3 did not release with this feature, a key clutch feature I feel that made Diablo 2 so great. You didn't have to run around everywhere to do everything. They didn't implement it into Diablo 3. Legendaries having special properties. This is something that they're still fixing today. There are legendaries that have no legendary properties to make the legendary actually cool and exciting and not just a yellow item with higher stats. Once again, this game has been out for years and they're still today fixing these problems. Items getting random gear stats. I really don't need to harp on these too much anymore. I'm really not trying to bash the Diablo 3 development team or Blizzard in any way. I just feel like they missed the mark on a few things. Buying power from the auction house. They had the auction house around for so long. People just complained and complained and complained and complained. I understand why they kept this one around a little bit longer than all these other features, because this is what was going to make Diablo 3 all of its money for Blizzard. Give them a little bit of slack on there, but the auction house just didn't turn out the way that they wanted. The real problem, in my opinion, is they made legendaries so rare for this auction house that you had to go on it to get your power, because you were pretty much never going to find what you needed, and it just made for a very, very poor economy in Diablo 3. And then from the very beginning, one change that I would have loved to have seen before release is allow players to test the game. They allowed you to run from like levels 1 to 15 all the way up to King Leoric, and I have to say that just wasn't enough playthrough time, as we saw on the release of Diablo 3 many years ago now. I'm not trying to harp on anything, but these are just problems that I've seen throughout the game in succession all the way from the very beginning of Diablo 3. And I feel like if they were a little bit faster to implement some of these things and listen to the community, because these are all community-driven ideas, whether they were initially the community's idea or if the developers thought of it first and just didn't have time to implement it. These are things that the community has absolutely asked for. So that is all that I had for this video. I do want to thank you all for sticking around. I am Chrome on Rust for Core Expert Gaming. More Diablo 3 content in the future. Like, subscribe if you would. I'm out of here. And of course, as always, you all have a great day.